Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Intergenerational Connection, a place where we share stories, reflections, and a little bit of heart to bridge the gaps between generations. If you're someone who loves a good story, who finds comfort in hearing life's truths unfold like a warm conversation over coffee, then you're in the right place. Today, I want to talk about something close to many of us, something that touches the soul as we grow older. Why are so many aging Americans feeling lonely? This isn't just a question, it's a story we're going to unravel together. Like sitting on a porch swing, watching the sunset, and letting the thoughts flow. Loneliness isn't just an empty room or a quiet phone, it's a feeling that creeps in. Sometimes when we least expect it. But here's the thing, it's not the end of the story. There's beauty, strength, and even joy waiting on the other side. So, let's dive in, with open hearts, and explore what it means to grow older in today's world. To find freedom in our own company, and to rediscover happiness in the simplest moments. Imagine waking up in a small house, the kind with creaky floors and windows that let in the morning light just so. The coffee pot hums, and you're alone with your thoughts. For some, that's a picture of peace, a chance to move at your own pace. To tend to a garden, or to flip through an old photo album. For others, it's a reminder of absence, of children who've moved far away, of friends who aren't around as much anymore. Loneliness, you see, isn't just about being alone. It's about what that solitude means to us, and how we choose to fill it. Let's start with someone I'll call Margaret. She's 68, lives in a quiet suburb in Ohio, and she's been on her own since her husband passed a few years back. Her days are simple, she waters her roses, reads mystery novels, and sometimes listens to the radio for company. Margaret told me once, over a cup of tea, that she loves her independence. She decides what to cook for dinner, what show to watch, and when to take a walk. There's a kind of freedom in that, isn't there? When you've spent years raising kids, keeping a household running, or working long hours, getting to call the shots for yourself feels like a gift. That's what I want to talk about first, this idea of freedom and self-reliance as we age. Growing older doesn't mean losing control of your life. In fact, for many, it's the first time they get to truly live on their own terms. Think about it, no alarm clock forcing you out of bed. No deadlines unless you set them yourself. Margaret says she feels like she's rediscovered herself. Like she's finally got the space to be Margaret again. Not just a mom or a wife. She paints now, not because she's great at it, but because it makes her smile. She's learned to fix a leaky faucet, too, with a little help from YouTube. That's freedom. Friends, finding joy in what you can do for yourself, no matter how small it seems. But freedom doesn't always come easy. Sometimes, it arrives hand in hand with something heavier, loneliness. Margaret admits there are days when the house feels too quiet, when she wishes someone would call or stop by. It's not that she doesn't have people in her life, her daughter lives a few states away. Her son checks in when he can, but life moves fast for them. They've got jobs, kids, mortgages, and Margaret, like so many others, doesn't want to be a burden. So, she keeps busy, keeps smiling, but there's an ache sometimes. Isn't there? A longing for connection that's harder to fill as the years go by. Loneliness isn't something we like to talk about. It feels like admitting defeat. Like saying we're not enough on our own. But let me tell you something I've learned from listening to folks like Margaret. Loneliness doesn't mean you're broken. It's just a signal, a little nudge from your heart saying, hey, let's find a way to connect. And there are ways, friends, even when it feels like the world's moved on without you. Take a moment to think about what makes you feel alive. For some, it's storytelling, like the stories we share here, where you can lose yourself in someone else's life for a while. For others, it's a hobby, a conversation, or even a walk through the park, waving at neighbors. Margaret started going to a local book club, not because she's a big reader, but because she wanted to hear other people's voices. To laugh and argue about whether the detective in the story was any good. It wasn't a big thing, but it was enough to make her feel seen, to remind her she's part of something bigger. This brings us to something deeper, something that sits at the heart of why loneliness can feel so heavy, our relationships. Especially with our children. When I was younger, I used to think raising kids was about giving them everything, love, education, a safe home, so they could soar. And then, when we got older, they'd be there for us. Right? That's how it's supposed to work. Or so we're told. But life's not that simple anymore. Kids grow up, they move away, they build their own lives. And sometimes, without meaning to, They leave a gap. I think of John, a retired teacher from Colorado, who's 72 now. His son lives in California. His daughter's in New York. They call on birthdays, send cards at Christmas. But John hasn't seen them in person in over a year. He doesn't blame them, they're busy, he says. And he's proud of the lives they've built. But there's a sadness there, a wish that things were different. John told me he used to think his kids would be his safety net, that they'd be around to share meals or help with the little things as he got older. Now, he's not so sure. It's a hard truth, friends. But it's one we need to face. Our children aren't our retirement plan. They love us, sure, but they've got their own battles to fight. Bills, careers, raising their own kids. And honestly, most of us don't want to lean on them too much. We raised them to be independent, didn't we? So, why should we expect them to put their lives on hold for us? Instead of waiting for them to fill that empty space, maybe it's time we learn to fill it ourselves, not because we have to, but because we can. This is where the conversation turns a little philosophical. Because loneliness isn't just about who's around us, it's about how we see ourselves. Happiness, I've come to believe, isn't something that comes from outside. It's not a visit from the grandkids or a phone call from an old friend. As lovely as those things are, happiness is something you cultivate, like a garden you tend to every day. And the older we get, the more we realize that the seeds of that happiness are already inside us. Let me tell you about Clara, who's 75 and lives in a small apartment in Florida. Clara's got no family nearby, her only son passed away years ago. And her friends are scattered across the country. By all accounts, she should be lonely, right? But Clara's got this spark, this way of finding joy in the smallest things. She keeps a journal, writes down one thing every day that made her smile, a bird outside her window, a kind word from the mail carrier, a song on the radio that took her back to her dancing days. She says it's like collecting little treasures. And when she reads them back, she realizes her life's fuller than she thought. Clara's story reminds me of something important. Suffering, like happiness, starts in the mind. We can't control everything. Kids move away. Friends drift. Our bodies slow down, but we can control how we respond. Loneliness becomes suffering when we let it define us. When we decide it's all there is. But what if we saw it differently? What if loneliness was just a quiet moment? A chance to listen to our own hearts. To rediscover what makes us us. This isn't to say it's easy. Aging comes with real challenges, health problems, money worries, the fear of what's next. But here's where we get to choose. Friends, we can let those challenges weigh us down, or we can use them as a reason to live more fully. That's what preparing for aging is all about, not just saving money or eating right. Though those matter, but preparing your spirit, your mindset, for the road ahead. Think about what you want your days to feel like. Maybe it's having enough saved up so you don't have to worry about bills. Or maybe it's finding a community, like a church group or a knitting circle, where you feel at home. For me, it's about stories, telling them, hearing them, sharing them with folks like you. Stories remind us we're not alone, that our lives are part of something bigger, something that stretches across time and generations. Speaking of generations, let's circle back to our kids for a moment. Even if they're not around as much as we'd like, there's still so much we can share with them. Not obligations, not guilt trips, but stories, our stories. Write them a letter, record a video, tell them about the time you fell in love or the hardest lesson you ever learned. Those connections don't need to happen every day to matter. They're like threads, weaving us together even when we're miles apart. And here's something else. Connection isn't just about family. It's about the neighbor you wave to, the cashier who knows your name, the stranger you strike up a conversation with at the library. Margaret, from our earlier story, says she started smiling at people more, not big, grand gestures, just a nod, a good morning. And you know what? People smiled back. It's small, but it's a start, a way to remind ourselves we're still part of the world, still seen, still valued. As we age, it's tempting to think the best days are behind us. That loneliness is just what happens when you've lived long enough. But I don't believe that. And I hope you don't either. Every day is a chance to find something new, a new hobby, a new friend, a new way to see yourself. Clara, with her journal of daily joys, taught me that. John, who's learning to play the guitar at 72, taught me that. And Margaret, with her book club and her roses, taught me that. So, why are aging Americans lonely? Maybe it's because life changes faster than we expect. Kids grow up. Friends move on. The world keeps spinning. But maybe it's also because we haven't yet learned to embrace the quiet. To see solitude not as emptiness but as space to grow, to reflect, to create. Loneliness doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something else, something beautiful, if we let it. I want to leave you with this thought: you are enough. Just as you are, your life, with all its ups and downs, is a story worth telling. And here at Intergenerational Connection, we're here to share those stories, to remind you that you're never truly alone. Whether you're 60, 70, or beyond, there's still so much to discover, so much to love about this life. Thank you for joining me today, friends. I hope this story touched your heart, maybe gave you a little spark to carry into your day. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to Intergenerational Connection. We've got more stories to share, more moments to connect. Give us a like, too, if you're feeling kind. It helps us reach more folks who might need a story like this. Until next time, have a beautiful day, and may God bless you always.